these people?
What's up, everyone? It's Indy. Hi. It's one-on-one. And I've got our friend Golden Monarch. And I feel really bad because we did one a couple of months ago and I had some audio issues and it started out great and you could hear him just fine for about 20 minutes. And then something happened. I don't know what. And we had an audio gremlin and all of a sudden he got muted for the rest of the stream. I didn't know it. This time we're going to bring him back. And I kind of want to back up a little bit and start over and kind of explain how we found each other, which is a great story. And then talk about his publication and all the work and the research that he does, specifically about crypto and Bitcoin and the Ponzi scheme that they are, and the links to Zionism and Azov Nazism as well. And I think that it's fascinating how you've uncovered all of this. I appreciate the work that you've been doing now for close to a year publicly on Substack and way before that in the Discord. And that was how we met, was over at the Hardlens Media Discord. Shout out to Kit Cabello over at Hardlens Media, Indie Media Award honoree from 2022. I don't have my soundboard there. Where's my Indie Media Award sound? Oh, there. All right, so that's Kit. So we hung out in there and I saw you writing these long kind of warning messages about what was happening with the crypto markets and how it was being co-opted and that there was a shift happening. And I said, this is really good stuff. I think you should really be publishing this for more than just the people in this Discord that see it. I think it should be, available to a wider audience. And why don't you think about publishing on Substack? And thankfully you listened and decided to do that. So, and I greatly appreciate that. Hold on one sec. And we're going to get into all of the work that you've been doing. And now it's really come full circle with Trump coming into office, because he was effectively elected by partially the crypto and now also by Israel and Zionism and Elon Musk and crypto. Those were the three factions that effectively came together most to elect Trump, as well as, the MAGA coalition that held together and grew across the last 4 years thanks to the failures of the Biden administration. So, hi, Golden Monarch. Sorry, I've been talking nonstop for about 3 minutes now. So I'm going to hand you the floor and I'm going to let you kind of guide us through what you're seeing now and walk us through the journey of kind of how you arrived to seeing what you see now. And I may interrupt you along the way and ask a question and here or there, but I want to try to let you have the floor and really lay out how you've seen this whole thing develop over the last year plus.
Sweet. Well, Indy, good morning, and thanks for bringing me back. And hey, everybody, it's me. So, to rewind back a little. So, I first got into independent media. I first started, following channels like INN, Hardlens, RBN, and such. As at least a year or two before the pandemic happened, I had started to notice how corporate media was constantly smearing Trump as if he was some boogeyman. But ultimately, corporate media and corporations as a whole, they were just using Trump as a means to get their own agendas passed. And once Trump was effectively done with his first term, then came in Biden, and then the pandemic happened. And then in the middle of that, I noticed that the emerging crypto market, so crypto, it's been around far longer than we give it credit for. Crypto goes as far back as the first cryptocurrency, that being Bitcoin of 2008, and arguably longer than that. But anyways, during the pandemic, we saw this crazy surge pumps of crypto, from meme coins like Dogecoin to even Bitcoin, and it was so like weird and fascinating because how the heck did this secondary market pump to begin with? And when you look for the history of the crypto market and by extension Wall Street, corporate media, financial institutions, and even billionaires, and of course its earliest investors, they've always known about what blockchain technology is. And so during the years leading up to both Trump's and Biden's administration, they, the elites basically were slowly but effectively pushing this new propaganda. They were slowly talking about we need to go digital instead of fiat. And in the middle of that, they were, I guess you could say, experimenting with how would people use their income, how would people use their stimulus checks, if you will. Some people had what you would argue is extra money. They curiously invested in crypto. They saw some massive gains, and then everything seemed like, oh, okay, maybe this is the way. Okay, maybe there's nothing wrong here. But then 1 year into the pandemic, we're talking like 2021. Dogecoin gets put in the spotlight. Elon Musk, he gets put in the spotlight. The whole Dogecoin up dump, it was like, I think for many people, like one of the first signs that, hold up, there's a lot of pump and dumps. There's a lot of like rug pulls going on with the crypto market. And, people were wondering to themselves, hey, are, is the crypto market by any means attached with the mainstream and whatnot? And I think going into 2021 and 2022, so even more profound implications where the elites were slowly but deceptively changing their tune about crypto. They were basically doing a flip 180 to narrate it as if, oh, crypto's good for us, crypto's good for everybody, But during the time that I was following independent media, you saw this like crazy scandals happening. The most prominent one as of late being the FTX scandal involving Sam Bankman-Fried. So while I'm following this stuff, Indy, I'm also was tuning into more and more independent media. I noticed how over the course of the past few years, there hasn't been as much talk about the shenanigans going on with crypto. The shenanigans going on, what's really up here, certainly everyone was talking about, how there was a massive rise of inflation. We were getting ourselves into an unnecessary proxy war involving Ukraine and Russia, and then all of a sudden, Wall Street is openly and proudly doing insider trading. They have no shame in whatsoever, and yet there's barely any talk about crypto now, outside of maybe like solo channels like CoffeeZilla and such. I haven't really seen any independent media-based channels really dissect and break down what the heck is this whole cryptocurrency trope. Why is it getting so much momentum among libertarian folk, MAGA folk, billionaires? What the heck is going on? And so I remember as far back as 2023, after seeing the hardship of how so many hardworking working class people lost money in their investments of crypto, you started seeing like lawyers, politicians like RFK Jr. He was the first one, to my knowledge, he caught my attention right away because initially, before Trump came back, RFK was centered around being the presidential candidate that would vouch for cryptocurrency and especially Bitcoin. And then as you learn more and more about RFK, you learn more about, okay, what were his initial stances with like the vaccines, the healthcare and whatnot. But then here's the major red flag. And this is when it dawned to me, Indy. So RFK Jr., as you know, he completely flip-flopped with the whole Israel-Gaza situation. Kennedy has always been Zionist. He's never, denied that. And on top of that, he's also pushing very hard the crypto aspect. So it got me thinking, could there be some correlation between Zionism and Bitcoin? And then I noticed as more and more like establishment Bitcoin conferences and such, we're talking about crypto, especially Bitcoin. You saw more and more prominent politicians and figures. I remember in 2023, you got Tulsi Gabbard, who went from defending Bernie to then running in 2020, and then leaving the Democrat Party, being quote unquote independent, and then slowly but surely, basically staying around with the establishment, going towards the opposite end of the establishment angle, which is the right wing, conservative end. And then Tulsi Gabbard that I used to advocate for back in like 2019, 2020. Now Tulsi's pushing Bitcoin. I'm like, what? I'm like, where on earth did Tulsi come about this? Why wasn't she talking about crypto in the past or something? So it was just these things were not making sense. And then, but going back to RFK real quick. So RFK was coming out more and more as a Zionist. I remember as far back as Roger Waters. He wanted to talk with RFK, or I think he tweeted to RFK, and then RFK did respond back or something. But then RFK deleted a tweet response from Roger Waters. So we got one red flag there, and then another red flag. You've got Max Blumenthal. He wanted to talk with RFK Jr. As well, but RFK never bothered to interview with Max Blumenthal. So that's another red flag. And then more and more, you saw all these like pseudo-libertarian Bitcoiners out of nowhere suddenly becoming political. Vouching for RFK Jr., vouching for the U.S., vouching for Bitcoin. I thought that, hey, hold up, wasn't the point of Bitcoin supposed to be it's supposed to be decentralized? It's supposed to be independent of government figures. You're not supposed to use Bitcoin as a means of idolizing a certain someone. So then, as 2023 was wrapping up, and you saw more and more billionaires, including Trump himself, getting into the crypto cesspool. Here we are in 2020. Well, here we were last year in 2024, and okay, so we still have independent media. We're still, channels like yours are still getting censored. More and more, people are doubling down on either Biden or Trump, and then I still see that, still not a whole lot of talk about debunking crypto. Like, there hasn't been a lot of talk about pairing Bitcoin with Zionism, pairing Bitcoin with the let's say the World Economic Forums. It's only until again, corporate media started talking more and more so, and then they were praising, cheering people like Michael Saylor, Larry Fink, Mark Cuban, and many other billionaire institutions. So here we are in 2024. That's when I started using Discord more heavily now. Of course, I've been in touch with the Heartlands, the INN people for years before that, just on the side. And then that was when I believe you reached out to me, Bad Cookies reached out to me, and other people, and you notice how I was reporting so much things on Discord inside. And then that's when you guys recommended to me that maybe I should write a few articles, start to really publish some of this stuff, get the awareness out, start to make the argument about why do I see this connection between Bitcoin and Zionism, and well, truth be said, I mean, Indy, it's not me who's saying that, but rather it's the actual establishment figures, the politicians. I mean, sure, corporate media does an effective job of essentially separating the conversations of Israel from the conversations of Bitcoin. But when you put them together at the end of the day, they're one and the same.
It overlaps, is what I see. Is the people that are focused on pumping Bitcoin and growing that type of a digital economy are also the ones that are pretty much full-throated in support of Israel. What we don't see a lot of is anti-Zionists and that are pushing for Bitcoin, because who controls all the switches? Who makes all the fee? Who collects on all the fees? It's not the decentralized thing that they had initially kind of promised us. It morphed into something completely different as it was taken over by the central bankers, and they ran up the price of the coin to be able to scoop up the large percentage of the market, so that we're all playing with scraps and crumbs. So you took us through 2023. You took us into 2024 when you started writing and getting into the Hardlands Discord. You mentioned something about Dogecoin earlier, and that being one of the precursors. I remember Mark Cuban also, by the way, was a very big early proponent of Dogecoin. He's always been big into converting things over to digital. And he, I remember, was one of the first people in his Dallas Mavericks store. He was accepting Dogecoin in exchange for the merchandise. Like, you could buy merch with Doge. It was one of the first things that I remember seeing, that you could turn crypto into real world assets. And at the point, a shirt or merch isn't necessarily an asset, but into real world goods rather than it just being a theory. And then we started to see that more and more, but now with this run up in Bitcoin to the point where it was literally more than $100,000 a coin, it became cost prohibitive to the point where only the institutional level investors and the billionaire class could really afford to own any substantial portion of it. And unless you got in super early, then you missed out on that boat, and the people who did became super rich. One name that comes to mind, and by the way, also a Zionist, as we've uncovered, is Brock Pierce. Okay, completely made off of crypto and Bitcoin, and big advocate for Israel, silent on their murder of children and innocents, and their theft of land when it comes to Gaza and now soon to be the West Bank. And it's very concerning because a lot of the people who are getting wealthy and orchestrating this, as you're talking about, are advocating for Israel doing this. And that does link the Bitcoin growth and the money that's being invested in the future directly into Zionism in Israel. And I think that you also did something similar when it came to Azov and Ethereum. And that's an entire other article that you had published back in the fall. But even before that, I remember I read an article, and let me bring it up here, was you had talked about, and right now it's featured at the top of your Substack, which is, by the way, goldenmonarchnews.substack.com. For those who aren't already subscribed, go subscribe. It's free. You can pledge support. He doesn't even take dollars there. You can't even give him any money if you wanted to. All he's doing is reporting what he sees so that you can be educated about the crypto market and take steps accordingly, which is basically avoid it like crazy, because you're not one of the players that's controlling it, which means that you're going to be controlled by it. And eventually everything is going to rug pull. If you're going to do it, and what we mean when we say rug pull is that your asset that you bought for a lot will go to nothing because the people that were on the inside decided that they wanted to get out and go somewhere else, and you weren't privy to that knowledge. So you're left holding the bag as they exited. And we've seen that over and over and over again. And we've seen it especially specifically now with meme coins, okay? And even now with our Ray crypto token, the Rockfin thing that we had talked about. I mean, there is so much to how crypto is being manipulated as another asset class, but also as a currency, and to be interpreted and used as an end-all be-all based upon a need or a use case. And I think that's crazy. But crypto has used the money to buy off the presidency, which now has implemented people into the SEC that literally last week said that meme coins are a buyer beware, baseball card level, quote unquote, not an investment vehicle, So now all bets are off and they can do whatever they want and the SEC isn't going to get involved. Thoughts?
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, the SEC pretty much after Gary Gensler abruptly left, pretty much the SEC was now under the control of the crypto industry itself. So, now we're going to see the SEC pretty much like allow all these money launderings to essentially happen. If you're in the meme coins, essentially you're on your own. Uh, they want to, wipe their hands clean. They want to have zero accountability whatsoever. I mean, this is just straight up like, theft. I mean, we'll say one real quick thing about the SEC. So, by no means was Gary Gensler perfect by any means. It is interesting how this is like Gensler derangement syndrome among crypto enthusiasts, where they were constantly like pressuring Gensler to resign, that he's holding everybody back. And then, ironically enough, when Trump launched his own meme coin, $Trump, all of a sudden, some fanatic Bitcoiners were like, "Oh no, we need to bring Gensler back." So it's just like this, like dopamine, like regurgitating, like dipshit, like nonsense that all these people have catered themselves towards, like this, like inorganic, like cultish mentality where they feel like we have to be ahead of everybody else. But that kind of mindset, really, that kind of mindset is like what you would see from, like, I don't know, the CIA, the NSA, like operations and such. So a lot of people, obviously, like gatekeepers and whatnot, they're being used, obviously, to like paint themselves as resistance, as we're better than the government. But no, you guys are essentially no better. You guys are no better off than the current administration or politicians or whatever. I mean, one of the egregious examples I could think of as of late is Ian Carroll, man. And like what was it, a few weeks ago, I caught Ian Carroll downplaying how he was not involved in an upcoming Bitcoin conference, and yet he is involved. So it's like, bro, come on. Everybody sees you for what you are. You're a fraud.
Yeah, that was a weird thing. I caught
being
that.
like this pro-Palestinian advocate.
But so I saw that, right? And I noticed that whole thing, and I see you talking about some of the other influencers. We'll get into a couple of those. But his unpopular opinion, he promotes Maha. But yeah, the crazy thing is, like you said, he said that he was not, like, he's on the poster for Bitcoin 2024 or 2025 conference in Vegas. And when you tagged him in it, he's like, "Wait, my guy, what do you mean? I'm not part of that." And he's literally on the poster. And he's like, "Oh, that's news to me." Really? So somebody basically booked you on it, put your face on the poster, and you had no idea? Oh, I guess that's possible, but we'll see if he shows up or not there. Yeah. Steve over at AM Wake Up was talking about how do you cut your hair and not shave the cop stash. There's a lot of mustache jokes that we make with regard to Ian Carroll, but Ian has kind of opened himself up to be seen as controlled opposition, and certainly trying to steer people towards Trump and Kennedy and Shanahan and whoever else is involved with him. But yeah, here we go. This is great. Yeah. The opportunity to be flown to San Francisco to interview her as far back or before after she was elected or selected, not elected, selected by RFK because she volunteered to pay for it. And I wrote about that. But here are the ops opping where the ops are talking to each other, Lauren Lee and Ian. That's funny. So you've been running into these people like Bitcoin Isla you've been talking about, and Natalie Brunell, who wants to fix the money. So they've got a lot of these quote unquote influencers that are out there. They're very pretty and good looking, and they sound like they make a lot of sense, and they look like they're doing very well financially. But what's happening? What's happening?
Well, what's happening is that, essentially these people who would appear to be like, not having to do anything with politics, not having to do anything with like worshiping billionaires, celebrities and whatnot. That's essentially what they're doing. So this other person, Santos, Isabella Santos,
Yes.
I started noticing last year how she okay, so she went from living in Florida to moving to Isla Mujeres, which is in Mexico, and much like Carol, and much like Brunel, she's pushing this whole Bitcoin trope among the citizens of Isla Mujeres. And in that article, I basically point out how okay, one of her guests actually happens to be from America, Nathan Posen. I forgot how to say his last name, but Nathan. He actually is a CEO of some company, of some sports thing. So it's like it's not just some random dude that she selected out of nowhere. Um,
Huh.
she has connections with Peter Todd. I mean, this lady, ironically enough, Peruvian like I am, but this lady basically she comes from corporate media, so she used to be like one of like the talking one of the talking ladies, and then from corporate media she went into like this whole trope of Bitcoin, and she does regular contributions for BTC Inc., which is led by the CEO David Bailey, who he's like the one of the like masterminds who runs those huge ass Bitcoin conferences around the world, and basically like Santos is just their honeypot, their allure to get suckers into Bitcoin, and then they spoon feed them with regurgitating talking points. They bring up things like, oh, it will, it will Bitcoin will provide freedom. It will, you know, be well off. The time is now. And then further
Well,
down in the article, she even
part of the problem though is that you still seen that overall the market has exploded on Bitcoin, and we're saying all of this, and at the same time it's also close, it's 80,000 or whatever dollars per coin at this point. It's been over 100. It's taken a pullback, but still 2 years ago it was 35, and then it went all the way down to what, 19,000, which still, even from 2017 or 2018 days, seems unfathomable, right? And then we had the pandemic, and we had a lot of people that got their stimulus checks that put money into Bitcoin because they didn't want to necessarily put it into the stock market, and they didn't know what else to necessarily do with it if they couldn't, they had it not due as debt already. So they wanted to invest it. They saw that Bitcoin, like you said, was flying at that point. And that was one of those explosive growth periods, was at the end of 2020 into 2021, just after the lockdown had happened, just after everyone had gotten over $3,900 or whatever in stimulus checks, depending if they had families or not. And there was a lot of cash pushing out there that found its way into the crypto markets. Now, the one thing I did also want to mention, though, is that we have been talking about how crypto and Bitcoin itself is a Ponzi scheme. And I want to get a little bit more into the basics of how the money that goes into a crypto or Bitcoin market that people are putting in their hard-earned cash ends up being siphoned out by a central bank, a investment bank, or a wealthy investor, and deposited in fiat currency into a bank somewhere in the Caymans or in Switzerland, or somewhere that they have very loose laws about tracing who owns that account. Is that accurate? Is that an accurate assessment that I just laid out there?
Yes, it is. And So if we branch out from my articles for a moment, one can argue that since the creation of like quote unquote electric cash that was co-developed with NSA and even veteran cyberpunks who wanted to create code but use that so that it could impact the way the means of how we go about our daily lives, transactions and whatnot, communications. So you could even argue that as far back as the 2008 financial crisis. So when Obama was, essentially, well, not just Obama, but like the banks themselves, when they were basically screwing everybody in the process. In the middle of that, while people were, who had investments were, scrambling to either panic sell, hold, or figure out what the heck they're gonna do. The deep state, and that's what I argue. So the deep state, they put up Bitcoin just out of nowhere, right at the perfect opportunity, so that this unknown thing could just emerge from the internet, and as a result, you got this like anonymous cyberpunk developer by the name of quote unquote Satoshi Nakamoto, who just put this Bitcoin, this peer-to-peer transaction out in the in the middle of nowhere, and essentially the mainstream, they're monitoring this. Of course, they're not going to jump in right away. They want to first see how do your average citizen, how do they react to Bitcoin? What the heck is Bitcoin? They want to it's kind of like putting an operation out there, and they want to human study what are humans' responses to blockchain technology. What do people think about the Bitcoin white paper? How about do people go about investing into Bitcoin? You see, at the very beginning, in the Bitcoin was not absolute worldwide. It was hardly even nationalized. It all started here in the United States. So unless you knew somebody who knew Bitcoin, very few people knew what the heck Bitcoin was when it first came out. And then as more and more of those emails from Satoshi and other cyberpunks, namely Julian Assange, were coming out, and how the formation of WikiLeaks was being founded, then you start to notice how alongside Bitcoin, there are a lot of leaks coming out about the U.S. military, a lot of sensitive information that the United States did not want anybody to know. So you had these whistleblowers, anonymous, journalists, if you will, sending information to WikiLeaks.
Yes.
And when the United States caught notice of that, they're like, okay, we're gonna through corporations, we're gonna suspend WikiLeaks from receiving any type of fiat currency. I believe what was a good example? PayPal. PayPal is one of those first online banking exchanges, if you will. Those kind of like eBay back in the day. So even PayPal was restricting WikiLeaks from accepting donations. But one thing that they couldn't stop was the whole Bitcoin donation. Now, maybe I'm just hypothesizing, of course. Maybe they could have back then, but I have a hunch they didn't want Bitcoin to be halted. So they just let Bitcoin let its idea of decentralization, idea of you own your own currency, you own something that is considered precious and scarcity because there will only ever be quote unquote 21 million of these tokens. So let's let Bitcoin do this. Let's let Bitcoin do its part. Let's allow WikiLeaks to accept Bitcoin, and then let's allow users who then also get into Bitcoin also donate to WikiLeaks. And then as the years followed by, and as more and more pressure was being put on WikiLeaks and Assange, you saw that even PayPal, ironically enough, PayPal was even considering, okay, let's opt in into the Bitcoin network. Let's accept Bitcoin as a means of transfer. And then little by little by little, you saw more online exchanges like Coinbase to Robinhood and so forth get on the whole Bitcoin crypto perspective. I wonder if anyone's ever asked themselves during that decade, why is it that corporate media, billionaires, and even people like BlackRock and Donald Trump and even Michael Saylor, why were they all initially positioning themselves as being we're anti-Bitcoin, we're anti-crypto, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's a scam, and then all of a sudden there's like a manufactured 180-degree flip, where now they're suddenly we're pro Bitcoin, we're pro crypto, we are like the biggest advocates of all. So it's like this like completely like manufactured like 180 that I think they're trying to like obviously get in the game, but also screw many people in the process. So for any like earliest investors, like one example I could think of is, and he's the tallest scumbag, Max Kaiser. He got into Bitcoin, I think 2011, 2012, and let's keep in mind there's still people out there who didn't know what the heck Bitcoin was, because Bitcoin, for the most part, was mostly within U.S. spheres, and then eventually made its way into European spheres, and then eventually it went global. So you had some dipshit like Max Kaiser who came from Wall Street, who came from obviously he has ties uh, to billionaires and financial institutions. He's suddenly promoting Bitcoin, and he's saying that Bitcoin will kill the dollar and whatnot. And what's funny about this guy is that not only is he so profound with his talking points, he even launched his own meme coin back in the day, which is called Max Coin. So who would have thought that the biggest Bitcoin maximalist had his own meme coin?
Huh.
And I kind of feel like anytime that anyone brings it up to his face, he probably doesn't want to not know anything about it. It's like it never happened, kind of thing.
Right.
And but right, but really the disgusting thing about these like elites is that they make up so many outrageous like nonsensical points about Bitcoin and how it's freedom and how you know it it enables you to fight against the system, which frankly it does the opposite, because uh blockchain technology, like the internet, like your cellular phone and such, can't it's all developed. The United States, Israel, and even other developing countries like China and whatnot, they have the tools, they have the budget, they have the means to create technology. They have the means to like go digital. I mean, this is nothing really new. For like decades, we went from like your classic like I grab a phone, I turn the wheel a few times, to like, okay, I'm gonna have a phone on my hand, which is a flip phone, to then, okay, let me use my iPhone. Like they're just like agendas upon agendas. This is all planned out. So Kaiser, what he's doing, what his biggest sin is, so not only is he making outrageously cringe posts like, oh, if Palestine had invested in Bitcoin, they could have bought Israel by now. I mean, who the fuck thinks that? And
Oh, it was awful.
not only that, yeah, not only that, would Israel even allow that thing to ever happen, even if the Palestinians had all just decide, all right, we're gonna get into Bitcoin and we're free? Yeah, well, no, dumbass. I mean, you're talking about, okay, how does Kaiser explain the fact that Israel has a lot of weapons? They have massive ties back to the United States. I mean, this guy just he doesn't know what he's saying. But the other biggest sin is that right now Kaiser and his wife Stacey Herbert, who by the way they used to be former RT contributors, um, nowadays
Yes.
they're backing arguably one of the biggest biggest like supporters of Zionism, of the U.S. imperialism, which is the El Salvadoran president Bukele Nanib, who, ironically enough, Nanib is both Salvadoran and Palestinian. But
Oh, you're kidding. I didn't know that.
regardless of ethnicities, Bukele, he wants to make business with the United States, with Turkey, with Israel, for the sake of technology, for the sake of like, creating El Salvador to be like this paradise, because we got rid of drug lords, we got rid of crime, corruption. Well, I mean, sure you did, but what you replace it with is essentially no better off, which is, police surveillance, using prison labor, in which even someone like Marco Rubio is particularly fascinated about how the Salvadoran prison system is being set up, and how all the prisoners are basically doing labor, like, like working in like these these warehouses, as if they're like minions, like the DreamWorks, those yellow minions guys. And essentially, there's so much like questions about, okay, what is the long-term impact of El Salvador? How are the people themselves benefiting off of this? Because you have Kaiser, you have Bukalik, who's essentially opened themselves up to a lot of billionaires, a lot of real estate developers and such. Okay, sure, they may pour a lot more money into El Salvador, but in the process, they're gonna screw their own people in the long run. I just know it. Sure, you can make Salvador look beautiful, and you can you can promote Bitcoin all you want. What's the payoff when you leave the El Salvadorians, essentially, uh, I don't know, not well off, because now they can't keep up with inflation, or what happens when their own government even like promotes censorship and increased military presence. Is that really a safe society to live and prosper in? It's funny how, like, in social media, how you have like a lot of gatekeepers, particularly from Salvador. Like, this one young lady, she like does the like cute work drawings of the little holder, to the point where she even suckered the clownish failed comedian, failed vigilante Graham Elwood to, first off, she's not even from El Salvador. She's from Germany. She's from Europe, basically. So how the hell does this white lady know what the hell she's talking about? She doesn't speak for the people of Salvador. You got like these like honeypots. You got like these like um assumption-based figures who are like painting El Salvador as the best, and Bukalik as some sort of savior. But honestly, I don't see him Bukalik be that much different off from you know Trump, or any of the other leaders around the world. I mean, I have a feeling that they're using El Salvador specifically as a testing grounds to see how can they implement what El Salvador has done into a bigger nation such as the United States. Because
Well,
if El
remember
Salvador can get away with this,
that they also, the IMF like stepped in. They were like, "Hey, El Salvador, I'm a little worried about how invested you are in Bitcoin, and we would like to give you like a $4 billion loan to kind of keep you on the IMF kind of heat also," because he was effectively like, I don't know how to explain it, but they being out of their control or their purview or sphere of influence, and they basically bought their way back in because he was like, I don't need you guys. And they're like, well, here's $4 billion, so will you let us kind of still have a say? I guess is kind of the way I interpreted that. Is that how you saw that?
yeah, essentially. I mean, the IMF. I mean, they're basically it's like they're putting El Salvador on a leash. Now, certainly, of course, El Salvador can continue to buy Bitcoin, but I think what has happened is that they don't want El Salvador to get too powerful. They still want El Salvador to be in some instances, um, on a leash. They want El Salvador to still be kind of like codependent on the Western hemisphere. That because El Salvador, as much as they have Bitcoin, as far as land, as far as like how far El Salvador can expand, it's really not a big country. Um, we're talking about essentially it's like an island, beautiful island. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like almost politely telling Salvador, fall in line, and then essentially you also see this happening with like the latest in Argentina, where the Argentinian chainsaw massacre guy, um, uh, Milei, um,
Yeah.
he thought, all right, let me get into crypto as well. And then on top of that, let me launch my own meme coin, Libra. And then, let me make sure that, hey, if something goes wrong, let me try to wipe my hands clean and claim I have nothing to do with it, except you do. And, of course, CoffeeZilla and other, prominent uh, investigators, they talk about Libra and they broke down how yeah, Libra, much like previous meme coins, was essentially a rug pull. It was just a scam, upon a scam, and there's been talks about the Argentinian, the other parties, maybe considering to maybe impeach or Milei needs to resign. So yeah, I haven't followed that story as much recently, but I'm curious to know. Okay, what's going to be the outcome? Are the United States, are the Western powers, are they going to bail out Milei? I mean, because it's clear, very clear to me that the U.S. through Marco Rubio has a heavy interest in controlling of Latin America, from El Salvador to Argentina to even Venezuela. Venezuela with things to like use the Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado to still to this day try to overthrow the president of
Maduro.
Venezuela, Maduro, and right, Maduro, and by the way, so yeah, Milei, uh, Nanib, and Machado, all three of them, they support Israel and they support Bitcoin. So go figure. Obviously, they're hopping into that train, that Western imperialist train, and so more and more, it's clear to me that they're just copycatting. They're just trying to stay relevant so that they can appeal to, you know, uh, Western authority while regarding its own people in the long run.
Also, all three of those leaders have rejected BRICS.
Yes, so that's the other thing too. So BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and of course other nations who are partnered with BRICS. BRICS is probably like the biggest obstacle from the United States being able to like, I guess you could say effectively, uh, dominate the world, albeit the dollar, and I'd even argue even Bitcoin, even their own creation of stable coins like Tether and um, USDC, which is developed by Circle. So it's really interesting how and it's kind of a little disappointing how like to some degree China and Russia are also sort of hopping into like the Bitcoin wagon, but I don't think they're hopping into it because they necessarily believe in the whole tropes of Bitcoin and all the nonsense that it's put with it. I think they're hopping into the whole Bitcoin and crypto is because they want to also try to play that game and also try like manipulate the market so that with the attempts to also screw other nations around the world, namely the West. I mean, for like since the start of the Ukraine war, you've seen you know Russia, China, and other nations denounce the dollar. That okay, we're not gonna accept the dollar anymore. You know what? United States, fuck you. Um, enough is enough. We're gonna make it hard. We're gonna like not take the dollar. We're gonna like accept other means of currency. And as a result, inflation, with the irresponsibilities of the Biden administration, and of course, you know, log nuts like Larry Fink and Saylor and Kaiser, everyone's essentially playing that game to like, all right, who can stab who the fastest, who can basically screw who quickest. And so yeah, BRICS is really interesting because okay, so after the 70s, after the United States went out of the went they left the whole gold currency, because do you remember when the US was tied to the gold, like the
Yeah,
currency
the
of
gold
gold?
standard.
Then
That's right.
the gold standard. So now that the US is out of the gold standard, meanwhile BRICS are still tied to the gold standard. So I'm curious to know, like, okay, BRICS remains on the gold standard. I think they're trying to use blockchain to some degree, because I even read an article about how Russia even developed their own digital ruble as a means to counterfeit cryptocurrencies. But the point being is that if the West decide, all right, we're going to sell our gold, then could that, in retrospect, also drop the whole value of gold? Could the United States, and with Zionist influencers such as Senator Cynthia Lummis, could they be on the path to basically sell all its gold, buy instead Bitcoin, and then in the process, BRIC nations who still hold the gold standard get fucked in the process? Like all these like economic dynamics.
Maybe,
Like
but what we've seen so far is that gold lately has been spiking at all-time highs at around the same time that you saw Bitcoin spike to all-time highs. What it was is people are looking at both of those as safety vehicles for investment versus other higher risk things that long term people are still seeing that because BlackRock is making Bitcoin ETFs, and because State Street and all these institutional investors that, like you said, decried and bemoaned Bitcoin for years are now finally grudgingly accepting and buying up and realizing that they have to deal with it as a market vehicle. And then you've got the people like Michael Saylor. And I think it was you who actually pointed out to me that Saylor, through his company MicroStrategy, has been buying up all the Bitcoin that he possibly can, probably in the hopes that the U.S. was looking to add that Bitcoin to a strategic Bitcoin reserve for the country, that he would be one of the primary holders that they could buy it from, and he would have bought that all on the cheap and then sold it to the U.S. government on high. That I believe is also what's going on here. Is that accurate?
I mean that's pretty much accurate. The only thing though is, as you see with the current Bitcoin price, it has scaled back somewhat. And if you look at Saylor's and his company's, I'm not gonna call it strategy. I'm gonna always refer to it as MicroStrategy, by the way. If you look at MicroStrategy's latest Bitcoin purchases, their last several purchases were within like the 90K, the 100K. So right now, Saylor, you could argue, is currently taking a loss. But the truth about Saylor and his whole company is that, look, Michael Saylor, yeah, he's often regarded as a multi-billionaire, as a genius, as someone who all the Bitcoiners should look up to. But the truth of Saylor is like he's a fraud, he's a con man, and frankly enough, even though he doesn't say about it much, he is a quiet Zionist. I mean, it means that, look, MicroStrategy does have business ties to Israel and to China. The thing about Saylor is that he does end up meet with people within the establishment. He met with at least two different women, that those ladies, they're from countries that are heavy orders. And then Saylor meeting with Eric Trump from Mar-a-Lago. And of course, we know that the Trump family, they're all in with the whole Israel trope. So make no mistake, Saylor is a Zionist, a chaotic one at that. So with Saylor, though, the truth about Saylor is that he's actually in debt. He's in massive debt. In fact, this won't be the first time that Saylor has screwed so many investors. If we go back as far far as 2000, 2001, MicroStrategy were betting huge on this whole .com trope. And at one point, you saw its share skyrocket to the moon. But then soon after, all of it came crumbling down. And then for several years, MicroStrategy was pretty much like irrelevant. Nobody wanted to know anything about MicroStrategy or Sailor. I honestly think that at that time, Sailor's company should have, been, should have not existed. But somehow it survived, and then, decades and decades later, see MicroStrategy then, embrace AI. They open, they do like online classes. But then during, like, just prior to the pandemic, that's when, like, Sailor and his company, they get hard into Bitcoin. And especially after the whole FTX scandal, Sailor and his company look at that as, all right, this is our buying opportunity to buy stacks upon stacks of Bitcoin. So as you've seen from like the past few years, Indy, MicroStrategy buying Bitcoin, of course, they're seeing their profit gain. And then when Sailor needs more money, he can just go to the bank, get more money out to then buy more Bitcoin, make profit for himself, but also for the banks. But then if he wants to buy more Bitcoin, he needs to go back to the bank, buy the Bitcoin again. So in the long run, the idea is that, okay, Sailor's company will continue to make money. The bank will continue to make money. And if Bitcoin remains on a trajectory to go up, up, and up, up, and up, then Sailor can continue to take on more loans. But if Bitcoin goes in a complete opposite direction, not only is Sailor in heavy debt, he's also losing money with his own company. So basically, the question we have to all ask ourselves is, realistically, how long can this whole Bitcoin train go on for? I mean, what we're essentially looking at is like a .com bubble 2.0. I made the argument maybe as far back as last year that, I think Sailor's going to be one of those like Bernie Madoff 2.0 type of dudes.
Sam Bankman-Fried,
he's definitely going to be. Yeah, and I feel like Sailor, and there could be multiple, but Sailor will definitely be one of the quote unquote the next FTX scandals. I mean, if you look at the crypto industry now, you got so many red flags, so many FTXs waiting to happen, from Coinbase to Tether, Circle, MicroStrategy.
But he doesn't run an exchange, does he? Like, I don't know. I thought that, like, basically, again, I don't know the product that MicroStrategy sells or how they conduct themselves as a security. Go ahead.
Well, that's the thing. So on their website, they sell online courses, and they also sell, like, online courses about AI, about Bitcoin. I mean, really, it's when you really think about it, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. How could a company that went from nothing all of a sudden be worth billions and billions of dollars? So what it feels like is
effectively an online university, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
And this online university, and remember, there's Khan Academy that you can attend every class totally free, but yet this company, because it's been buying Bitcoin on behalf of Michael Saylor, and I've got a quote up on the screen now that you had taken from his conversation with Natalie Brunell, where they're evangelizing between them, and they're both Bitcoin Zionist evangelists that have become phenomenally wealthy, each off of the Bitcoin wave that has been ridden. We both are, again, of the mindset that at some point this whole thing is going to be rug pulled, meaning that it will go down to a very little amount, if not zero, because the people who put their money in have already taken their money out. And now it's just a perception that there's value there, but the money has already disappeared and been spent, as far as I know. is that and is in another bank account somewhere else, right?
Yes, I have no doubt, and I have no doubt that Saylor and other billionaires, they're not fully disclosing everything about their assets. Okay, so we have like the public image of MicroStrategy, and we have information about like, okay, how much Bitcoin, how much MicroStrategy shares do they have? Do they buy and sell? But for all I know, we don't know for granted if Saylor has his own private wallet or if someone like Natalie Brunel has her own private wallet. I mean, look, that's that is what is the beauty and disgust of the blockchain technology of like how these cryptocurrencies were developed and made is that anonymity, privacy, lack of transparency. I mean, essentially, these people can do with their money as long as they don't get caught. You know.
Well, and they just spent $119 million to buy off the president, who put in quote unquote regulators that will take all of the rules away or look the other way. They've also bought 20% or more of the entire Congress, which would effectively choke any legislation that might happen that might regulate what's happening in the crypto markets. And on top of that, they're all getting phenomenally wealthy themselves. They're being paid in the crypto that's going up, and everybody, kind of like a Bernie Madoff thing, everyone involved has a stake in having it continuously go up and up and up. So nobody wants to be the person that brings the whole pyramid down. Right?
Right. Yeah, and since 2008, Bitcoin hasn't, of course, seen like it hasn't dropped like to the point where like it's automatically zero. But you do see like this like regurgitating chart of like up, down, and then up, 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 down, 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 up, 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 up. And what's interesting about the whole chart of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is that with Bitcoin, the Bitcoin network has an algorithm within itself called the halving. So every 4 years within the Bitcoin algorithm, um, mining, you're rewarded less than half. So then it becomes more of an incentive for uh, miners to then use even more illegible outputs just for the sake of mining one block, one Bitcoin. And then, but as a result of that, Bitcoin, it's your complex sets of ones and zeros. Um, so as a result, you have all these like massive, massive investments of like graphic cards, using electricity, and maybe certainly using like geothermal or water to essentially use all these natural resources effectively, like harm the environment that's around it for the sake of generating one digital token.
Right.
Because of this notion that, oh hey, quote unquote Satoshi only made 21 million. Now it's fascinating how no Bitcoiner can answer why did Satoshi only make 21 million? What's up with the number 21 million? Um, well, that's the thing about like Bitcoin and it's like it's history. It seems too much like it's some sort of like agenda of the deep state. I mean, Satoshi Nakamoto. I mean, as I shared with you time and time again, that could have many different implications. It could be a pseudonym. It could mean like when you break down the lettering, it could mean like um, CIA or something. Like what kind of name is Satoshi Nakamoto? Yeah, there you go. And then what one of the most prominent examples that comes up is a guy named Hal Feeney, who was a crypto cyberpunk, and there's speculation that maybe Hal Feeney was Satoshi Nakamoto. Yeah, in the article, I do showcase how Feeney was involved in the cyberpunk movement and how, um, he did, he was power frozen. So, um, technically he's dead, and honestly, like we'll never know for certain 100% of what did Alfini knew. But if ever ever to be resurrected, which I think that's the point of cryogenics, then maybe he could shed some light into who or what Satoshi Nakamoto is. Another person that might know the answer to that question, but I think he's not allowed to speak, ironically enough, is Julian Assange. I have a hunch that Julian Assange knows who or what Satoshi Nakamoto is. Because, like Finney, Assange, before being more known as an independent journalist, he was a cyberpunk. So he was involved in all these, developments. Now that's not for me to say that he was directly involved with the NSA. I'm not implying that. But what I am saying is that he knows so much more than he's been allowed to let on. And because of how the manufacturing consent of crypto has gone, and how his wife Stella Assange, or I should say Sarah Gonzalez, has essentially kind of kept Assange, her husband, in more like in the background. We can't get any direct answers to what Julian knows. Maybe he's not allowed to express discrete information. And I bring that up because it's funny how while everyone was vouching for free Assange, and don't get me wrong, the brutality, the torture he went through, it's wrong, it's inhumane. I wish that upon nobody, okay? But while Julian Assange was still kept in prison, you had his family members, from Stella to Gabriel Shipton to even at one point John Shipton. They were all also being participants within these Bitcoin crypto conferences. And it kind of makes you wonder, more and more, why are these guys so closely attached to these pseudo establishment figures? These like CEOs or politicians or opportunists. It just doesn't add up. It kind of makes me wonder if one of the deals as far as freeing Assange ultimately was that, okay, will you can launch a Bitcoin donation. We'll pay for Assange's flight back, but we won't disclose who paid for what. How on earth does, when Stella Assange announced that she needs help with, I need help to pay for my husband's private flight back, that 2 days later, out of nowhere, an anonymous Bitcoiner was able to donate 8 Bitcoin, which I think at the time that was worth 56 to 60K of a Bitcoin. And just like that, boom, Julian is free. He gets flown back to Australia. Husband and wife reunite. The kids are reunited. I mean, it seems like, okay, happily ever after. And I want to believe that, really. I want to believe that. But there are so many unanswered questions and speculation as to who financed to Stella to basically get Julian out of the UK to fly back to Australia. So I remember looking on Twitter and even just sort of doing my own personal investigation onto Stella, and I noticed that there were two possible considerations. The first being Andrew Tate, because of some random tweet of his, but I think it's the latter. The second person, most likely, who personally funded in Bitcoin to pay for Julian's private jet, was none other than Jack Dorsey, who was the former CEO of Twitter,
Huh.
who is, I'm trying to remember, Jack Dorsey. He's
Yeah, he's now the CEO
I think he
of
runs Block now.
Block, which used to be Square. Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So, and Jack Dorsey is also one of those like, like pseudo establishment figures. It's not just anybody. He obviously has connections himself. So it's like very shady stuff. And
You don't think it could have been Saylor that did it? That put the $500,000 up to fly for the flight? I thought it potentially also might have been Michael Saylor. Also, given the fact that 6 months later at the Bitcoin conference, I believe in Amsterdam, you had several members of Julian's family speak there. Thoughts?
Yes. I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't seen any particular tweets or emphasis that Saylor personally donated some Bitcoin to Stella Sudge. But I do see though, and this is probably something that should be a major highlight among many independent figures, is that on Twitter, why is Stella Sudge following so many establishment figures from Navalny to Saylor? It just doesn't add up. Like, I feel like she knows there's a lot that she's not saying or that she's not disclosing. And then the same with Julian's brother, Gabriel,
yep,
who ran that NFT Assange DAO, and how, yeah, they're even using NFT technology, and it's just like what is really going on here? I mean, I understand the whole commotion of need to free Assange for the sake of freedom, for the sake of journalism, for the sake of free speech, but there has to be some sort of fausticious bargain going on behind the scenes that, of course, they know about, but we, the public, don't know about. And of course, I hate it when I'm seeing even fellow journalists, of course, Stella, and then even Winnie Webb, where at one point or another they're actually right beside someone like Natalie Brunell. Now, I say that not, of course, not to smear Webb or anything like that. Of course, she's done some phenomenal work, from the Epstein files to even breaking down the whole Peter Thiel Palantir, even Bitcoin with her husband Mark Goodwin. But even I see that it seems that there's still much mystery that needs to be solved, and I don't think we could solely depend on only Winnie Webb, because there's going to be a lot of things that maybe she won't be able to cover everything entirely on her own. So I think another reason why I in a way I got involved in wanting to speak out more about the crypto and the whole propaganda is because I didn't see enough people, in my opinion, connect the Bitcoin trope with the Zionism trope, or connect with the Bitcoin trope with honeypot operations. And it's sad to say that, and I hope I'm wrong, but I hope that that's not who Stella Sudge is. I hope that's not that. We've been sort of led astray. We've been sort of led a path that seemed genuine, but now we have to question everything once again.
Well, what industry or anything that gets grassroots support and organic traffic doesn't have the establishment send in multiple figures to try to co-opt that movement from a bunch of different ways. First of all, the first thing that they have more than anything is the money and resources to be able to do such a thing. So I totally understand, and I'm with you on the skepticism. I certainly would like to see a little more evidence, but that's not how they work. They don't really let you see enough. You kind of have to put it all together through reading tea leaves. and through having conversations with people who are in the know. I agree that not everyone, that even outstanding journalists are not able to cover every angle. I think in the case of Whitney Webb, I think she does make the connection between what's going on now with crypto and how it's been co-opted by the central banks, and how it's not the decentralized fight of a way to opt out of the system, but rather a way to lead into digital control and CBDCs and the ability to market and know to an extreme level everybody's behavior, because everything then becomes trackable and available to the people that know how to access it. And I don't think that there are any misgivings. I think that when it comes to Whitney and where she goes, she'll go everywhere to get her message out and kind of use the platform for Zionists to warn them about what she sees happening, and hopefully get through to some people in the audience that might be questioning what they're seeing already. One of the people I wanted to shout out, and you actually led me toward this person, is Michelle de Cryptodamus, okay, who has been also outstanding at calling out the Ponzi that is Bitcoin and crypto and meme coins specifically, and also the crypto grifters of Doge was one of their most recent articles. They don't publish terribly often, but they're very high impact. And where they are, just like I find you are a lot, is on Notes, which a lot of people don't even really know about Notes. I find hilarious. Notes is effectively the Substack version of Twitter, where you can make posts. They can have images, they can have videos, and I don't think there's much limitation on the videos you can upload there. There are very little character limitations. They don't use hashtags, but you can tag other people on Substack. It's a very powerful platform that also you can tailor your news feed to only show up with a lot of crap that the algorithm, quote unquote, is pushing. You literally can control the algorithm on this platform. And one of the people in my algorithm is you. So what I see a lot of are posts like this, which are in depth, okay, that have a video that was time-stamped, that have images, that have a link, and does a lot to educate and inform beyond the articles that you publish. And I wanted to call people's attention to not sleep on the content that is being put onto Substack Notes right now, because a lot of times it's an adjunct to the posts that are being emailed out and put up to the Substack newsletter publication. And a lot of times people don't realize that there are two separate things between Notes and Substack posts. So I just wanted to mention that and say you're doing a freaking awesome job at educating people and driving people toward your posts. And I think a lot of what Notes is designed to do is be a social way for, originally it was the creators and readers to share what they're reading, give a little bit of context and flavor within a Substack environment, and lead people to discover your newsletter and sign up for more of what they want to see. And I'm excited about all those things. What I'm not excited about, though, is the fact that you've got Mark Andreessen heavily invested in this platform of Substack. And Mark Andreessen is co-founder of Andreessen Horowitz, and as well as A16 Ventures, right?
Mm-hmm.
So A16 is a hedge fund, an investment company that has bought into many different companies, including Substack and Stripe. And I've written extensively about that on both sides and how I feel like that company specifically is double dipping and getting double paid on every Substack transaction there is, because they make money off of Stripe and they make money off of Substack. Stripe is exclusive with Substack. It's a thing. But now also they're getting involved in crypto. This A16 is now getting involved heavily in crypto. So what have you seen there? How have you used Substack to grow your reach, to educate others, to connect with others? Just go into that for a few minutes before we wrap up. I know we're hitting almost an hour and a half, and I'm gonna have you back. We're gonna do this again for sure. So I know we couldn't cover it all today, and I really appreciate all the time that you're spending with us so far. But I just wanted to learn a little bit more about what your process is with Substack and notes and publishing, and how you've kind of navigated your way through all that. Go ahead.
Certainly. So, with the beauty of Substack is that one, you're not restricted by character limits, which I'll be honest with you, that's what I hate about Twitter. That Twitter has a restricted character limit. I don't want to pay for its blue mark, whatever. But with Substack, yeah, you have your posts and your notes, and in a way, I think of notes as your means of like, okay, if I can't write a post right off the bat, I could use notes to kind of build upon what I want to talk about. And so to kind of give you a preview, in the back of my mind, I've been sort of like in the background. I've been watching that I've been watching that scam documentary known as God bless Bitcoin, which it's an obvious scam, which is features Natalie Brunell as the lead cheerleader host, with politicians, billionaires, at least two rabbis, and other like shady individuals. And I've been doing like breakdowns of like, okay, let me watch this certain clip, let me quote what this individual said, and then let me rebuttal, because there's so much like nonsensical things that they're saying that even though God bless Bitcoin is from a year ago, that what you're seeing happen in present daylight is exactly what these elites want to happen. There's a lot of dishonesty and such. So I do that with notes. I also restack posts, like posts from Miguel, posts from you, posts from other people who I follow, and certainly there are other Substack users who have also talked about crypto or debunking of cryptocurrency and all that. If I see something, I'll repost it. I'll comment on it. I think that's one way how I can grow my channel. Of course, another way I can grow my channel is through Twitter. Although, albeit it's very limiting, it's very frustrating. I get constantly hammered by those P bots and those crypto bots. So if you can, don't use Twitter. But if you must, good luck. Good luck navigating through it. And then what else? Oh yeah. So before we wrap up, you did point out to me earlier about how on my article on my Substack, I still have highlighted on the very top about the whole Santa Monica, the Bitcoin office thing. So very real quickly. So
Yeah, let's get into
I've
that.
been following that story. Yeah, real quickly. So I've been following that because I noticed since last year that this dumbass of a firefighter, who's not a firefighter, Don B. He's talking about Bitcoin, how Bitcoin's good, and that no matter if these financial institutions or no matter if Bitcoin goes down, we need to at least educate ourselves. We need to like put some money interest. We need to set up Santa Monica as one of the first upcoming Bitcoin offices so that people can get educated, people can get normalized with how Bitcoin is essential for society, and how like, but what he doesn't lay out is how he's trying to use Bitcoin to convince unions, to convince retired police, firefighters, that hey, you guys should you guys should put your pension funds into Bitcoin, that you can use Bitcoin to retire. It's just like so many polarizing like red flags. We don't even know what the next few years of Bitcoin is going to be. Sure, Bitcoin can maybe climb up and up and up, but you got to remember that, like, down by, he's just like another controlled opposition, like Dennis Porter of the Satoshi Action Fund. That guy is there so that he and his nonprofit organization, the Proof of Workforce, can make money, can get more mainstream coverage, can get more access to then be able to like carry out their own personal agendas, which then goes back to the agendas of BTC.Inc., the Bitcoin corporations, the conferences, your billionaires, your elites, and the one person who I am particularly concerned about, who I'm like, you know what, this woman, she needs to go. Her name is the mayor of Santa Monica, Lana Negrete. So
Hmm.
last year she was still part of the city council. Before she was the official mayor, she was the vice city mayor. So, anyways, this mayor, she gets on board with Bitcoin. She looks at it as, oh, this is exciting. I never done Bitcoin before. I never heard of it, but I want to get into it. I'm really curious about it. And then, you know, I have posted in that link. There's different like PDFs of how several like endorsements were vouching for. Yeah, you guys need to launch a Bitcoin office. And one of those prominent voices was the bitch herself, Natalie Brunel, who, by the way, I think that's what sets me apart from Winnie Webb, respectively, is that as much as Whitney Webb will talk with Natalie Brunel from time to time, I for one, I'm taking my gloves off. I'm calling her out. I'm calling her out on all her bullshit. To the point where even Brunel has blocked me off on Twitter because I reposted how um a couple months ago when we had the wildfires in Los Angeles, indeed, Brunel was asking for crypto donations to one of her friends who lived in Palisades in Malibu. She lost her home, and um, Natalie Brunel needs help, and I'm like, scam, because like, first off, why are you asking? Why are you asking just random Twitter users for donations? Why don't you yourself, Brunel? Why don't you donate your hard your money to your friend? Why don't you ask the crypto industry? Why don't you ask Sailor, who you seem to like constantly flatter yourself towards? Why doesn't she ask Sailor for money so that Sailor can help Natalie Bruno's friend, you know, get a new house or whatever? It's just like very like suspicious, activity. So anyways, but back to the article, I pointed out how like so many establishment institutions and figures, they're part of the grift. They're part of the grift to like push Bitcoin. And this mayor, Lani Legrata, she's all for it. If it means she can make more money, if it means that she can secure her position as mayor, then she'll do it. As a matter of fact, uh, last month, or like I think, was it last month or so, she was one of the speakers who went to this Plan B forum in El Salvador. So she was
Yes.
there alongside Don Bailey, and they were talking about Bitcoin and whatnot. I'll admit I haven't like I have the link. I watched it. I haven't really done like a deep nosedive into what nonsense they were talking about, but you could, at the very least, you could see that this mayor, she's all on board to prioritize Bitcoin over prioritizing I don't know, like her city, or maybe actually get firefighters their proper equipment. So in California, yes, clearly, Karen Bass of LA and Gavin Newsom, clearly those people, they flunked. They, embarrassing. They should go. But I also advocate that mayor of Santa Monica, she needs to go,
Not only
because
that,
you're already seeing
right. I
signs
mean, I
that she's
mean,
not
they,
going to be.
they made this advocacy to create a Bitcoin office in downtown Santa Monica, and wasn't there basically a ton of wildfires, and like a lot of that area had ended up burning down months later, where they committed thousands of dollars to study, and they were told that, oh, it's not going to cost us a dime, but they might have to reroute some of the police or the streets, or they might have to do some zoning or whatever it all of a sudden went from not costing anything to then costing something, and they hadn't even done anything yet. Is that accurate?
That's more or less accurate. The only thing is that Santa Monica itself, they didn't so much get wildfires directly. Certainly, they were extremely close by to the smoke and all that and the ashes, but more so Malibu and Palisades, they were the most affected with the wildfires. You saw houses just get burned. But what I feel like, in combination with the mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Bass, I feel like if there are other mayors like the Grata who put self-interest over responsibility of, say, prioritizing, a proper fire budget, making sure that, their communities and around that have enough proper fire gear that these wildfires could have been contained far sooner, and they wouldn't have like exploded. They wouldn't have been such a disaster. Now, I'll be honest with you, I haven't visited that area in like since last year, Santa Monica and Malibu. So of course I well, of course right now the fire is gone. There's no more fire, but certainly I haven't gone there personally yet to see what other ramifications. Um, all I know is that from last year in downtown Santa Monica, they put like that Bitcoin office within their screen that I think you share with me. But as far as that goes, I haven't like I don't know. I gotta one of these days make a drive down there to the area and see. Has
Yeah,
there
so
been any
the
kind
whole
of
idea was that they
expansion
would
of the
build like
Bitcoin
a hub, a national Bitcoin office, that then they would build a conference center and have like an annual conference there and really make Santa Monica known worldwide as a Bitcoin hub. Although Bitcoin doesn't, being decentralized, they don't have an office. There's no executive CEO that's in control of Bitcoin. This is all just evangelism marketing. It's a marketing office to be able to pump the coin that as long as it keeps going up, they keep getting wealthy and able to fund all this stuff. That's how I see all this.
That's right. That's right. So, as this year goes by, unless I see or hear any updates about Negrate, the very last thing that she was involved in was again in El Salvador. She's back in Los Angeles. Um, I definitely gotta at some point make a visit to that hub, see if there's been any like I don't know expansions of it. I mean, the point being, I mean, so yeah, you got her, that's a problem, but really, you got Don Bay. I think he's the one who's really pulling the strings because
Yes.
he convinced the mayor to do that, and then in another article, well, not that I wrote, but that he wrote personally. So yeah, apparently Don Bay, he's on Substack as well. He wrote an article a while back how in Wyoming, the police are now putting their pension funds in Bitcoin, and you know I just restacked it, basically saying that hey, this is a scam, basically. It's on my notes somewhere.
Yep.
Maybe
And
maybe we can
and
talk more about that next time.
and the thing about Wyoming is that that was an area that was targeted by the crypto industry several years ago. Between Jackson Hole and the University of Wyoming, they're doing a lot of crypto study there. I believe they decided to choose Wyoming because of the amount of cheap, undeveloped land out there where they could build power centers and electricity hubs so that they could power the the things that are creating Bitcoin. All the servers and all. It takes a tremendous amount of electricity to generate a Bitcoin, but it's only really a digital key. Okay, there's no physical asset behind it except for the energy expended to create it, which is already gone. So the way I've always seen, the approach to Bitcoin and where the value of Bitcoin is had always been a hedge against a fiat currency. Okay, but now it's not really a hedge against a fiat currency, especially when all the fiat banks are getting involved in buying that as another investment vehicle. It's just another way of moving money around from what I saw. And a lot of people just don't understand it yet still.
Right.
All right.
Right.
I think
I just took a quick peek at. Sorry, so real quick. I just took a quick peek at Don Bay's Substack. He has another article out from a few days ago about California's unlikely energy partner. I'm going to share that, of course, on Discord and Substack. But that's all I wanted to say.
Cool. All right. Well, for today, we'll wrap up there. What just happened? I just hit a button. It didn't. Oh, that's why I hit the wrong button. All right. So again, we covered a lot, I know, and I really appreciate your time. I know there's a lot to this, and I definitely want to do more of these with you because there's a lot more to walk through. We didn't talk anything about Ethereum and Azov. We barely talked about how we think that the Bitcoin stuff will be leveraged in how Israel plans to take over and reconstruct Gaza / the Greater Israel Project, and how it will be used to potentially fund the Ben Gurion Canal and all of these things potentially. There's a lot, but I really appreciate your time, Mr. Golden Monarch. Everybody, again, go subscribe at goldenmonarchnews.substack.com. That's where you can find him. Also on Twitter at golden__monarch. There's 2 underscores to the name there. So definitely give him a follow over there. And we will be back again very soon, I promise. And we'll do this. And again, any questions you have, feel free to leave it in the comments. Give this a like, give this a share. Let me just put up really quickly the support slide. If you do like what you're seeing and you want to see more shows like this, please, by all means, we appreciate Cash App, Ko-fi, or PayPal. We also are on Substack at innewsletter.com, where you can subscribe monthly or annually. And my personal Substack is indiemediatoday.com. You can also go and read some stuff there, as well as watching all the clips from How Do We Miss That, where I've read several of Golden Monarch's articles since he's published. And again, man, I really appreciate the work that you do. I appreciate the writing and the camaraderie and the friendship, and that you get it and that you're willing to share all of this out there for the world to understand it. So anything else that you wanted to say? Any other things that you want to promote before we get out of here?
Yes. Hashtag fuck Bitcoin and free Palestine. And yeah, Indy, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it, dude.
All right, brother. Well, support independent media, everyone, because we need it more than ever, and we'll see you soon.
You can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen? To 50,000 died, and now we know our mission. We form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen. What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause, now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these